Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Drew Kamp, and I'm the Director of Government Relations and Business Retention and Expansion here at the Ames Chamber of Commerce. We're doing a little something new this week. We're actually going to do the weekly legislative update via video. That way it can be a little bit more concise than the multiple pages of text I tend to send at you in the weekly legislative update on Friday afternoon. Jumping right into things, the first and biggest thing that really happened down at the legislature today this week that we want to make sure that we highlight is a tax increment financing bill, or TIF as we like to call it in the industry. That passed a subcommittee on Tuesday, then thereby moving it into a full committee meeting for the House Ways and Means. It's yet to be put on the calendar, but moving it into a full committee is the first step to then getting it passed through the committee and then onto the House floor, which is something we are adamantly against. The bill would take away a lot of the flexibility and strength over the overall TIF programming, which is something we've used in Ames very conservatively and responsibly over the past couple of years. Think the extension of infrastructure down to the Economic Development Core Facility, gym, McFarland Clinic area in the Iowa State Research Park, as well as the thing that helped us close the deal, one of the financial assistance tools that helped us close the deal on the Barilla project just this spring. Some of the things I want to highlight in the bill is that it would strip the use of TIF, backfill, which is a 540 tax levy that then backfills the school portion of the increment that's going to an economic development project, and thereby would very much hamper the use of TIF, because that's a key piece of is backfilling the school's tax liability as part of TIF. It would also not let you use it on public buildings or use it for residential on ag land. This is very much an issue, especially in rural communities who are surrounded by ag land, and anytime they want to do a residential development, most of the time to help build up their school district, they would not be able to do so unless they did some things with zoning that they don't currently have to do, and that would be a huge limiting factor to our rural communities in Iowa and Story County as they try to continue to develop and broaden their base for their school district. It would also allow the county to opt out of their portion, which with school levy and that could severely hamper the overall portion of the increment that you would be able to receive, and would very much strip the power of the overall assistance that would be provided for a specific project. It would also end economic development, urban renewal areas after 20 years, and slum and blight after 25 years. This is an issue because it can take a long time to get some of these done sometimes. Think the Western Gateway down by Meredith in downtown Des Moines, or the East Village in downtown Des Moines on the east side of the river between the Capitol and the river. Both of those took decades to get done, and this could essentially limit the ability to do things like that. The Ames Chamber of Commerce is very much against this TIF bill, as we have always been with TIF bills. As I said, we use it very conservatively and responsibly here in the community, and we're not too keen on the idea of it being stripped from us, because it would severely hamper our ability to do things like the research park infrastructure, or to seal deals like we were able to do with Barilla, where we were competing with a different location that was offering quite a bit more in incentives, but the flexibility of TIF really was something that helped us close the deal in a partnership with the city of Ames. Another very big issue that we're monitoring very closely is income tax reform. The governor's individual income tax proposal is supposed to come out in the next week or so, and that's something we're going to be monitoring very closely, because that is something, as we saw with what happened at the federal government at the end of 2017, we really want to make sure that we're using the benefits that we've seen through the federal government to assist also at the state level, and not end up having to essentially pay more in taxes at the state level due to federal deductibility, which is something we would look at getting rid of with this income tax bill. Some of the important things that we would want to touch on why it's important that income tax get done for corporations as well as individuals, are the fact that corporations are 45% of businesses in Iowa, but they pay 62% of the wages, or about $26 billion in wages each year. And they also pay 28% of the state's local property taxes at 90% valuation, which is much higher than other classifications. So they are very much have skin in the game and are very much paying their portion of taxes, and we need to address that as well as we look at doing income tax reform and do our best to try to include corporations in as well. And that is something we will continue to work with the governor's office and the legislature on to make sure we can try to move that concept forward. The next issue that's a major piece of what we're trying to do this year in the legislature as well deals with workforce development. The governor's Future Ready Iowa bill was dropped this week, I believe on Wednesday, and it's something that we're really in favor of. The chamber is, the Iowa Chamber Alliance is, as well as much of our partners throughout the state. The big thing is we want to make sure we're working with K-12, institutions of higher education, and the governor and legislature to really make sure we can get the best bill implemented once it's passed the legislature, hopefully this session. The next big issue is water quality. There was action on that. The governor signed Water Quality Senate File 512 into law. That was her first bill signed into law as governor, as she wanted to be done per her condition of the state address. We're happy to see something done on water quality, but we do hope more can be done, such as adding businesses and to being able to receive assistance for water quality assistance. This is something that was in the House version of the bill, but the Senate version passed, so it didn't include those provisions. So we continue to work with individuals in the legislature and governor's office to try to get some of those provisions added as well. One of the major things that has happened over the last couple of weeks is the Senate came out with their proposal for a deappropriation bill for the current fiscal year of FY18 that ends June 30th. Some of the biggest highlights I really want to touch on, being such a government-funded and public entity town, of course we would be hugely impacted by this. Some of the proposed cuts are $370,000 from the Economic Development Authority's budget, which is hugely concerning as we receive a lot of assistance with projects we work on with our businesses here in the community to try to make sure we're moving the state and economy forward. That is something that would hamper that. We also saw a proposed cut of $6.9 million to Iowa State University, obviously something that's very concerning there, as it's quite a bit more than what the governor had proposed in her budget. And we also saw a proposed cut of right around $1 million to Des Moines Area Community College, which is hugely instrumental and very critical partner of ours, as well as Iowa State University. So we want to make sure that they're being protected as well. Two other things that would be hugely impacted is the Iowa Skilled Worker and Jobs Creation Fund and the High Quality Jobs Program. Both of those in the Senate bill would have a fund transfer of around $7 million done to them, and that would be hugely detrimental to what we're doing, because those are the key economic development programs that we use and when we work with our partner businesses in the community to try to make sure that they're getting the assistance they need to come to our community or expand in our community. And we want to make sure they have the most resources available as they try to do that, and that would severely hamper that. The Senate's deappropriations proposal was about $52 million. The governor's was much less than that, and the House is due to come out with their own here in the next couple days, or within next week probably. We anticipate that to be lower than the Senate version, and that's something we'll very closely monitor, because as you can imagine with some of the cuts that were proposed, we would much like to see some of those decrease in several areas because of the impact they would have if they were to go into effect in the manner proposed in the Senate bill. The final issue that I really wanted to touch on is education. With being a company town and Iowa State being the company, and also having a strong presence with Des Moines Area Community College in the #1 school district in the state, you can understand that we'd be very concerned about education. This week, this House came out with a 1% increase for supplemental state aid, which equates to about $32 million in additional assistance for school districts throughout the state. But that is less than advocates had been speaking for, but the great news is that they have gotten something out earlier than they need to be able to get school districts the numbers they need to set their budgets. But then the Senate did follow along late in the week and say that they too support the 1% or $32 million in funding to the community school districts throughout the state. There was an additional piece there in addition to the $32 million, however. They did propose a bill late this week that would not only extend the secure and advanced vision for education 1 cent sales tax that can go to school infrastructure and technology and transportation cost. That would be a $10 million addition to that $32 million. And what it would really do is equalize school transportation cost and extend that Save School Infrastructure 1 cent sales tax by 20 years, which really helps school districts as they try to bond out for some of their major capital projects, which is exactly what we're dealing with here in Ames as we try to build the new school, new high school, and the new swimming facility out at Ames High. So we will be closely monitoring those, because we don't really know yet if this is the final SAVE proposal for that school infrastructure sales tax. So we'll make sure we're monitoring that and the 1% increase as well. As we look ahead, the first legislative funnel at which point Senate bills have to be reported out of Senate committees and House bills out of House committees is coming up in 2 weeks on February 16th. That's a very important date because several bills can die if they don't fit the parameters to move forward in the session at that point. So we'll be closely monitoring some of the bills and issues that I addressed earlier, as well as several others, to make sure that they do or don't make it over that hump, and we'll make sure that we're keeping you abreast of those details as we work to do so. Also moving forward, we're going to watch for the governor's individual income tax bill here in the next week or so, as well as the tax increment financing discussion, the Future Ready Iowa discussions on water quality, the House deappropriations bill, and then the education funding that I ended the update with here in the next coming weeks to really see what's going on down in the Golden Dome leading into that February 16th first funnel and moving towards the potential adjournment here in the middle of April. As always, please let me know if you do have any questions. I'm always happy to assist in any way I can. And thank you very much for watching, and have a great weekend. Thank you.